بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وفقهنا إذا جهلنا وزدنا علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا يا كريم. اللهم انفعنا واجمعنا بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة يا كريم. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وفهمنا معاني التنزيل وبعد. Today we continue in this blessed month of Sha'ban, Shahr al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the month of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, by continuing our reflections and our study of the beautiful verses that describe the beautiful life of the beautiful Prophet, Sayyidina Yūsuf ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wa salam, al-Karim ibn Karim ibn Karim ibn Karim, the noble one, the son of the noble one, the son of the noble one, the son of the noble one, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He places so many lessons and so many so much that can be drawn out of the meanings of that blessed life, for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the first instance, and for all believers after that. About which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. We are relating to you the best of all stories. The best of all stories, the life of Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam. And we're going through the trials of Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam as outwardly, ظاهرا, outwardly, and as it seems to the eyes of all, he's going through greater and greater difficulties, being snatched away and kidnapped from his blessed father, Nabiullah Ya'qub alayhi salam, by his brothers, kidnapped and thrown down the well, left for dead, from where he's taken into the second trial, which is he's taken into slavery into Egypt, and then the third trial, after he's bought by the finance minister of Egypt, the Aziz of Misr. He's then, as he grows into full maturity, into this most handsome of all men, the one that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam described on the night of Mi'raj when he saw him. He said he was given half of all the beauty of this world. So Zuleykha, the wife of the Aziz, the wife of the minister of Egypt, she wants to commit adultery with him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him from such evil. And where we got to the point where she's caught by her husband as he enters into the house, and Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam is trying to break out. And the witness from her household testifies and makes a statement that indicates clearly that she's the one who's guilty and not him, because the shirt is ripped at the back. Just to continue the story and to continue to draw some meanings and lessons out of the great story of Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam. So we pick up from verse 28. It was around this point that we got to. فلما رأى قميص أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلما رأى قميصه قد من دبر قال إنه من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. So when the husband, Aziz Misr, the finance minister of Egypt, sees that her shirt is ripped down the back. قال إنه من كيدكن. He realizes that she's the guilty party here, even though she's tried to accuse Al-Bari alayhi salam, the innocent one to alayhi salam. She tries to accuse and tries to place it against him. But he's innocent. And he clearly sees that he's innocent. When he sees that the back of his shirt is ripped as he's trying to get away from him. So he turns to Zulaykha, his wife, and says, "Innahu min kaydikun." This is all from your scheming. This is from your scheming. إِنَّهُ مِنْ كَيْدِكُنْ إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ. Because truly, your scheming is something that's mighty. إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ. The scheming of the devil is weak. The scheming of these women, عظيم, and truly mighty. To try and trap the innocent Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam. But at this point, instead of dealing with her, his wife, who's tried to commit adultery with one of the servants in the household, instead of turning against her, he wants to cover it up as though nothing has happened. So the first thing he does, the minister, he then turns to Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam, simply tells him, "Yūsuf, a'rid an hada." Yūsuf, turn away from this. Turn away from this. Turn a blind eye. Behave as though nothing has happened. Don't mention it to anybody. Such was and is and will continue to be the way of royalty, because this is the house that Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam is being taken into, royalty, where these type of acts of infidelity will take place, but it's kept, it's hushed, it's kept quiet, so that nobody knows what's happening. So that's all he tells Sayyidina Yūsuf, "A'rid an hada," turn away from this, make no mention of this. And to his wife, Zulaykha, he simply says to her, "Wastaghfiri li dhanbiki innaki kunti min al-khati'in." He tells her, you repent from your sin. You're the guilty one. You repent from your sin. Wastaghfiri li dhanbik. Because truly you're the one who's committed the wrong in this. And again, as you mentioned, we'll once we get to the end of this particular passage, we'll list out the points. Here we have further evidence that Yūsuf alayhi salam had no inclination whatsoever towards this evil act of a zina. No inclination, because the husband himself has confirmed when he's seen the evidence, he says to his wife, "You're the guilty party. So you ask forgiveness for the wrong that you've done. Innaki kunti min al-khati," because you are the sinner. You're from the sinners within this. The Aziz of Masr at this point, the minister of Egypt at this point, he doesn't display any type of ghira. There's no protective jealousy that a man should have within him. He behaves in the manner of those of the Prophet ﷺ condemned a dayyuth. A dayyuth will overlook, a man who will overlook his wife behaving in an inappropriate manner. Condemned by the Prophet ﷺ. A man who knows that his wife is behaving in such an inappropriate manner and turns a blind eye. Condemned by the Prophet ﷺ. If a man's wife commits haram, he may forgive her. But just to keep on turning a blind eye as though nothing's happening, that's his hurma. His wife is his sanctity. And so to behave in this manner is reprehensible. Just telling her that, or telling him nothing happened. Telling her, just ask forgiveness for your sin and just carrying on as normal. But then, after Zulaykha has tried to commit this indecency and filth with the servants in the household, Sayyidina Yūsuf ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam, word begins to leak out. Word begins to spread. Such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even tells us, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين. Now the scandal is beginning to leak and spread. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says niswa, a group of women. A group of women within Egypt. They're now talking fil Medina, like fi Madinat Misr, within the city, the capital city of Egypt at that time. Many of the Mufassirin, they mentioned there was 5 of them. Even some of them pinpoint and list out. One of them was the wife of the bodyguard of the palace. One was the Saqi al-Malik, the one who would serve wine to the king, his wife, the wife of the Khabbaz, the baker of the king, the wife of the Sajjan, the one who is the in charge of the prisons, and the wife of the one who is responsible for the animals of the king. But that suggestion, Wallahu la nusaddiquhum wa la nukaththibuhum. We don't believe it, we don't reject it. But what's mentioned is that it seems that it's become common knowledge, not just 5, although many of the Mufassirin mention 5, not just 5, it spreads. And news is getting out. What's the news? What's the word? What's the scandal that's spreading? Imra'atul aziz turawidu fataha an nafsihi. The wife of the minister. That's the highest of all positions after the king of Egypt. The wife of the minister. Her servant has seduced him, or she's tried to seduce her servant because قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا, because love of him has penetrated into the depths of her heart. She's so besotted by him, and to the point where she can't see anything. إِنَّا لَنَرَاهَا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. And she's in clear error and misguidance. So now her name is being tarnished, her reputation is being destroyed. As word is spreading about the act that she tried to commit with al-bari al-naqi al-taqi, the innocent, pure, righteous Nabi. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then describes, and this is now highlighting the level of depravity and filth that spread in the higher echelons of that society. فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً وآتت كل واحدة منهن سكينا وقالت اخرج عليهن. So when Zulaykha is now being made aware, people are gossiping and talking about her, the Hebrew slave or the Hebrew servant. She's tried to have sexual relations with him. She now, إن كيدكن عظيم, she now plans out something even more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states when she heard about their scheming, and their scheming simply means here, they're gossiping, because gossiping takes place in private, in quiet. Behind closed doors, people are now talking, so it becomes like a private scheming that's taking place. فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِمْ. She invites them now. She invites them. Who does she invite? The standard statement in the books of Tafsīr, she invites 40 women from the highest of Egypt, including the 5 that started the gossip. وَأَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ. She invites, so she's now, as we're going to see from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she's now going to show them the reason why she did what she did, to the point where she's open. By the end, she's open about it. I'm going to have my way with this man. أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ. And her scheme, أَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً. She set it up, she's had it set up that she's going to have a banquet, a feast, where all 40 of them will just be reclining and enjoying themselves as they're eating. And fruits and food are presented to them. And then آتت كل واحدة منهن سكينا. Every one of them now has a knife, all 40 of them, as they have fruits and other food in front of them that they're going to cut. Knives are brought out for them. And her plan was, as they start to cut the fruits, she now tells Yusuf alayhi salam, at this point you come out. Now, one thing this seems to indicate, that prior to this, before this, Yusuf alayhi salam, the beauty and the jamal of Yusuf alayhi salam wasn't common knowledge. He was amongst the servants in the household, in the private quarters. He wasn't wandering around with his beauty just dazzling everybody. So they hadn't seen this. They hadn't seen what she'd seen. وقالت اخرج عليهن. As all of these 40 women are sat there cutting their fruits with their knives in their hands, she now says, اخرج عليهن. She calls him, Yusuf alayhi salam, as these women now enjoying themselves with the banquets. And he's moving amongst them. They hadn't seen him before. As he's now moving amongst them, beginning to serve them, these 40 women from the highest of Egypt, they're looking at him. And they're so overwhelmed by the beauty of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ. When they see him, they are so amazed at the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam that as they're looking at him and they're cutting their fruits, and if cutting the fruits, they'll have, I don't have anything like a fruit in my hand, they'll have something, and they're cutting away and cutting away and cutting away, and they're cutting at their own fingers into their own hands, but they're still so in awe at the beauty that they don't even feel the pain as they're cutting themselves. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it. وَقَطَّعْنَا أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. And they're cutting their hands, the fruits in their hands, they're cutting their hands, going deep into it, but they don't feel anything. وَقُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ وَقُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ. مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا. They've never seen a human being like this. They said, حَاشَ لِلَّهِ. This is not possible. How great is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This cannot be a human being. And we can't even begin to conceive of the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam, because these people, when they looked at him and they're cutting themselves instead of cutting their fruits and they don't feel anything, مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا. This is not a human being. إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. This can only be an angel. This can only be a noble angel. That's Sayyidina Yusuf, that's Jamal Yusuf, the one used to go out into the streets of Egypt and he would cover his face. He had to wear a niqab. He had to wear a niqab to cover his face. Such was the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. And it's said in the books of Shama'il, the books in description of the beloved sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it said, And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he described Sayyidina Yūsuf that he had such beauty, half of the beauty of this world, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the beauty of existence, Jamal al-Kawn, the beauty of existence, and أعطي كل الجمال. Yusuf alayhi salam was given half of all beauty, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given all of beauty. But the difference being, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam صاحب الجمال والجلال. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he has beauty, but on top of that beauty is the robe of majesty. The robe of majesty lessens the intensity of it. But even with that, and they're not looking at the face of the Prophet sallallahu. They're comparing, they're looking at the moon and the Prophet and the moon and the Prophet. Wallahi, they would swear that the face of the Prophet is more beautiful than the moon itself. So in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Jamal, the beauty of the Prophet is covered with the cloak and the robe of Jalal, of majesty, which is why they're able to even, although they don't look at Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it's only the young children who look at the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam's face directly, and it's only those who are raised in his household who are able to look at his face directly, because he was raised, they lived with him. Other than that, they don't look at the face of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Which is why al-muhibbeen, the lovers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they mentioned that if they were to look directly, they would become blinded. And they said, it's even mentioned in some lines of poetry that if the women around Yusuf alayhi salam cut their hands and their fingers, then they would have slit their throats if they'd seen the beauty of al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's al-Anbiya. That's al-Anbiya. That's the Prophets, al-Insan al-Kummal. These are the perfect human beings whose inner purity is reflected by their outer beauty. ما هذا بشرا. This is not a human being. إن هذا إلا ملك كريم. Her response, when she's now shown them, this is the one. Now this is the level of depravity, of filth amongst them. قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه. She's now defending himself. She's now defending herself as though she's not done any wrong. She says, فَذَلِكُنَّ الَّذِي لُمْتُ. That's the one that you're blaming. You're speaking about me. Now, what type of woman is it that would do that? And in their minds, the problem wasn't that she was trying to sleep and what she was trying to do. That wasn't a problem for them. Why would she do with a Hebrew slave? That's their issue. So now she's shown, this is the reason why. قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه. She says, that's the one that you blame me about. And now the pressure increases on Al-Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, upon the noble one alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Yūsuf, where she now says, وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمَ. Truly, without any doubt, I tried to seduce him. I wanted him. But he refused. He firmly and strongly, as I'm chasing him, he's running away from me, even though I wanted to have my way with him. So now again, anybody accuses Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam of having any inclination towards this evil crime, listen to her words. Say, Zulaykha herself is saying, I wanted him, he absolutely refused. فَاسْتَعْصَمَ. He's bari, he's innocent, totally innocent. But the pressure, وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. And now she says in front of all 40 of these women, if he does not do what I tell him to do, if he does not do what I want from him, he's going to be imprisoned. And he will be humiliated. He will be humiliated. So she's not backing down. She's not even, even though her husband, Aziz, the minister, he told her, "Astaghfiri li dhanbik," you ask forgiveness for your sin because you're the wrongdoer. She's not backing down. She still desires him with the most powerful of all lust towards. She still wants him, and she's not willing to refuse. If he does not do what I tell him to do, he will be imprisoned, and he'll be humiliated. He'll be from those who humiliated. At this point, as Al-Qurtubi, rahimahullah ta'ala, the great Mufassir, he states, she now goes back to trying to get him in front of all of them. No, she's not hiding it anymore. She's stripped off from herself any type of shame that she could have had. And she threatens him that if he doesn't do it, he'll be imprisoned and he will be humiliated and debased. At the beginning, the first time she went for him, she wants to do it in secret. Now she just opened it and she doesn't care anymore. So now the pressure is intensified on Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, but he's a tahir al-naqi al-zaki. He's the pure one. He's the purest of all, selected by his Lord. All the 40 women, they're telling him, "Ati' mawlatak, obey her, do what she wants." At that point, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, Al-Karim ibn Karim, the noble one, he turns towards his Lord and he raises his hands and begs his Lord. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. He said, "My Lord," as he's now, and he's come from the purest of all homes. Being kidnapped and left for dead was a problem. Being taken into slavery was more of a problem. But this is even worse for him. This is even worse for him. From where he's come from, for even the idea to cross his mind, it's worse than being kidnapped and left for dead and be taken as a slave. The possibility of such evil, where he now, wolves around him, predators around him, all of them encouraging her, do what you want with him. And there he is, the pure one, in the midst of such filth. So he turns to his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than what they're calling to me to do. What they want me to do, prison is better for. He asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, take me out of this palace and have me locked in prison so that they can't come near me, and she especially can't come near me. And again, and anybody saying that Yusuf wanted this, he's pleading and begging the Lord, take me out of this and leave me in the prisons of Egypt so she can't come anywhere near me. رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. And then his dua continues, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. He continues his dua by saying, Ya Rabb, my Lord, if you do not turn away from me the scheming of these women, where they're all pushing me to go towards her. He says, and this is min tawadu'ihi, from his humility, because he can't do this, but he says, Ya Rabb, if you don't turn them away from me, turn the scheming away from me, asbu ilayhinna, I'll incline towards them. And in bashariyati, he sees as part of my human nature, as a man, even though it's impossible. It's impossible. He's a Nabi, he's a prophet, it's impossible. But he's thinking about his human nature. Asbu ilayhinna, I'll turn towards them. And I'll be from those who are ignorant, from those who are fools, who will commit such an act in violation of the instruction of you, O Allah. So he prays to Allah, take me away from these women. especially her. Now again, to repeat the point, that when he, alayhi salam, al-Kareem, alayhi salam, the noble one, alayhi salam, when he's saying to Allah subhanahu his dua, that if you don't take them away from me, that I'll end up inclining towards, and I may even do the act. He said, this is min babi tadarru' wal istighatha bi janabillah. This is the humility of prophets, the broken nature of prophets, where they see themselves as worthless, even though they're everything. They see themselves as worthless in front of the power of Allah, but they see themselves as nothing. So he's fearful, even though he can't. Such is the adat al-anbiya al-salihin. That's the nature of prophets and the righteous. They will humble themselves until they see themselves as absolutely nothing. In their eyes, they're nothing, even though with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're truly great. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered the dua of Al-Kareem alayhi salam, of the noble one alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers him. And he turns away whatever she wishes, whatever they wanted, Allah subhanahu protects him from it. And eventually, in answer to his dua, he's going to enter into prison. That's the only place that he can flee from the intent of such women. Innahu huwa as-sami' al-alim. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about how Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam is going to enter into the fourth of the trials of the life of Yūsuf alayhi salam, which is, number one was being kidnapped and left for dead. Number two, taken into slavery. Number three, the attempts at Zulaykha, the wife, to commit adultery with him, which then intensified, as we've just seen. Number four, languishing in the prisons of Egypt, from the home, Beit al-Nubuwwah, from the home of prophecy into the depths of the prisons of Egypt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins this by telling us, ثُمَّ بَدَا لَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوُا الْآيَاتِ لَيَسْجُنُنَّهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Then it became clear to them, then they decided, after they'd seen the signs, all the signs there, Yūsuf alayhi salam was innocent, she was the guilty party. So all the signs were there. The signs being, the witness, the child, spoke. The sign being the shirt ripped in the back. The sign being how the women were trying to cut their hands when they see the beauty, and she's now trying even more to take him. Yet he remains absolutely firm. All of these signs are clear, absolutely clear. So Al-Aziz, the minister, and his family, or his wife, and the others now decide that he has to be imprisoned. Whatever scraps of her reputation and honor are left, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him, Yūsuf alayhi salam, from her approaches and from any further attempts. She's now given up, realizing, I can't touch this man. So the minister, on the pleading of his wife Zulaykha, he now instructs that Yūsuf alayhi salam has to be sent into prison. It is reported that the wife, Zulaykha, she spoke to her husband, the minister, and said, this Hebrew slave has humiliated me in front of everybody. And he said, I tried to seduce him. And she's now saying to her husband, I'm not able to defend myself and prove my innocence. So she now says to him, either you allow me to go in front of the public and speak and apologize for this claim, or you have him locked up and put in prison. This is part of the scheming. Inna kaydakunna azim. The scheming of women is powerful. The scheming of Zulaykha against Yusuf alayhi salam, when she's tried and tried and tried, all the schemes have failed. At the end, for her own name and her own, he has to go to prison. Not me. I'm not going to be. He has to go to prison. And so at that point, بَدَى لَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوْا الْآيَاتِ لَا يَسْجُنُونَ. They now decide, they become clear now, even though they've seen all the signs, he's absolutely innocent, the innocent one has to be put into prison. To protect the guilty one, the innocent one has to be put into prison. لَا يَسْجُنُونَهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Just leave him languishing in the prisons for a period of time. It is further reported in the books of Tafsīr, and this is mentioned from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, Mufassir al-Ummah, the greatest of all the commentators amongst the companions. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he stated, the minister then instructed that Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam be placed on a donkey, and he's led through the streets of the city, the capital city of Egypt, with drums being played to draw attention to everybody, and announcement being made as he's moving through the markets of Egypt. This Hebrew, Yūsuf alayhi salam, wanted to commit evil with my wife, or wants to commit evil with his master. So his punishment is that he must be imprisoned. The innocent one has been made guilty, and the guilty one is free. And that's why one of the students, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhum, Abu Salih, one of the students of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhum, he said whenever this narration was mentioned in the presence of Ibn Abbas, he would cry. ما ذكر ابن عباس هذا الحديث إلا بكى. Whenever he mentioned the innocent one being led through the streets of Egypt, being declared as the guilty one, whenever he would relate to Ibn Abbas, he would cry. He would cry for Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi salam. ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين. So Yūsuf alayhi salam, he's now in prison. He's left there. Years have passed. Years are passing and passing. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now takes us on to another point about Yūsuf alayhi salam. After many years, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now moves on and speaks about two people who now are placed into prison, in the same prison as Yūsuf alayhi salam. So these two prisoners, they actually go into prison at the same time as Yūsuf alayhi salam, but their dreams happen a lot later. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ. مَنِ الْفَتَيَانِ? Who are these two? It is reported that there was a conspiracy in the palace itself that for the king to be poisoned and removed and killed, to overthrow the king. And when word spreads in the palace about this conspiracy to poison the king reacts. And the two main people who were accused, al-khabbazuhu wa saqih, the baker of the king, the one who would make the bread, and also the one who would serve the wine. These were the two who were accused as being at the head of the plot to poison and kill the king. After a period of time, these two, Saqil al-Malik wa Khabbazuhu, the wine server and the bread maker of the king, both of them happen to have dreams. These dreams, they coincide around the same time, to do with the king himself. And here now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us into further dreams, not forgetting that again one of the key themes of Surah Yusuf ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam is the dreams. It started off with the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam. It ends with the realization and the completion of the dream. And in the midst of it, we're going to be shown further dreams, the dreams of the two people who are in the prison with him, the dream of the king himself, the king of Egypt. So another key layer of meanings that comes through, so it would say in Yusuf alayhi salam, is the dreams around that are taking place around him. So the two see dreams. Two of them, they see dreams. قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا. One of them, which is Saq al-Malik, one of them being the one who would serve wine to the king. He tells Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, I can see myself pressing wine, meaning pressing grapes that will become wine. I can see myself pressing wine. So it's further, that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it. But in the books of Tafsīr, they add a bit more detail. That he says that in my dream, I can see that the king has invited me and called me and has returned me back into his palace. And as I'm walking around the palace, then I see 3 trays full of grapes. So I start pressing them. And then I take the wine that's come from there and I go to the king and I pour the wine to him. That's the first dream. وقال الآخر الخباز. The other one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the other one, i.e. the bread maker, he says to Sayyidina Yusuf ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam, إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه. I can see I'm carrying on my head khubz, I'm carrying bread on my head that birds, they're eating from, they're pecking away and they're eating from. So he gives, or he states to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, in my dream I saw the Aziz, the minister. He's called me, he's instructed me to come, and I'm taken out of prison. And I'm given a tray full of bread, and I place it on my head to carry it, and then suddenly birds swoop down and start eating from it. نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. The two of them, they say to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, tell us the meaning of these dreams, because we see that you're from the righteous, you're from those who do good, which means either you're from those who are excellent in interpreting and explaining dreams. It's reported that within the prison itself, that whenever anybody had dreams, they would go to Yusuf alayhi salam, he would interpret it straight away, and it was exactly as he said. So they've seen that already, which is why they go to him. Or alternatively, they've seen the goodness of the behavior and the character of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, that when anybody needed anything, he's the first one to help. So they tell him, we've seen how good you are, either in interpreting in dreams or helping with people. So therefore, tell us the meaning of this dream. Yusuf alayhi salam, al-Nabi, al-Masjoon, the imprisoned prophet, Yusuf alayhi salam. He tells them, قال لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما. Al-Nabi, the prophet, the imprisoned prophet, before even beginning to explain their dreams, that's the easiest part, he uses now as a chance to teach them and speak to them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Tawheed. In the midst of the prison, da'wah, telling people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he tells them that food, the dinner that will come later on, will not come to you, that you're going to be fed, will not come to you before I've explained the dream to you. I will tell you this dream. I will tell you the meaning of the dream. I will tell you the meaning. I will guarantee you that. It said that when he tells them, I'll tell you the meaning of the dream before you even eat tonight. So they ask him, how do you know the meanings of dreams? You're not a kahin, you're not a soothsayer, you're not an astrologer, you don't deal with any, you're a pure righteous man. How do you know these? He said, that's all what my Lord has taught me. Bil-wahi, bil-ilham. My Lord has revealed it to me, my Lord has inspired it to me. But now he starts the da'wah. Inni taraktu millata qawmin la yu'minuna billah. And look at how he's trying to convince them to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He speaks about himself first, goes to the highest level. He tells them, I have abandoned and turned my back on a people, the beliefs of people who refuse to believe in Allah and the last day. لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. They refuse to believe in Allah and they refuse to believe in the Day of Judgment. All prophets came with Tawheed. What's their Tawheed? Believe in Allah, believe in the Prophet, believe in the Day of Judgment. Starts al-Mabda wal-Ma'ad. He starts at the beginning and ends at the end. Believe in Allah, believe in the Day of Judgment. Inni taraktu millata qawm. Even though he's in the house of the Aziz, the minister of Egypt, and these are all mushrikun, ubbad al-asnam. These are idol worshippers. These worship gods along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he's a Nabi. He's a prophet. In the midst of all of that, not too dissimilar to a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with his people for 13 years, and he's surrounded by the worst of monstrosities, these idols that they've created around the Kaaba. Yūsuf alayhi salam living in a home of that nature. But he said, I turn my back on it. I have refused to ever have anything to do millata qawmin, with the religion, the way of a people, la yu'minuna billah wa hum bil akhirati hum kafirun. That's the tawheed that we take from these blessed souls. It's surrounded by kufr, surrounded by all these different faiths. The way of Yūsuf, I turn my back on them. I have nothing to do with anybody who does not believe in Allah on the last day. And instead, that's like la ilaha, rejection. What is my belief? He tells them my belief. He says, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. That instead, he said, I've remained firm and continue to follow the way of my forefathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub. ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء. Lessons in Tawheed, lessons in faith. So it's not possible for us. We are prophets, household of prophets. It's not possible for us to ever commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could never ever even look towards a God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone believe in it. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the gods Allat wal Uzza, when he goes to Sham, when he goes to the blessed land of Sham, one of the traders there wants to test him, see, is he the final prophet? They say to him, swear by Allat wal Uzza. And it's a test. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, there's nothing I hate more than Allat wal Uzza. There's nothing I hate more than the gods of my people. ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء. It's impossible that we could ever worship anything along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذلك من فضل الله علينا. That's from the grace of Allah. It's a blessing of Allah. Recognize what Yusuf alayhi recognized. The fact that نحن موحدون, that we know that there's only one God. And we know that all the shirk of humanity around, whether it's a shirk with Isa ibn Maryam, the shirk of Hindus or whatever it is, that we find that foul and reprehensible, and we have no respect whatsoever for it. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا. That's all because of the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us, that we're able to recognize La ilaha illallah. There's nothing except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no ma'bud, there's no one to be worshipped except for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ. And that's from the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to people, that He sent prophets to convey to them the message that the prophets themselves carried, that there's no gods, there's only one subhanahu wa ta'ala. After Yusuf alayhi salam, lessons in da'wah, lessons in how to speak, after Yusuf alayhi salam has told him that I have nothing to do with the gods that these people around me worship. I'm only on the way of my forefathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub. I'll never turn away. I can't turn away from that. He then moves now to have the two of them who are mushrik. They're from the people, they're from the ancient Egyptians who worshipped idols. Well, he wants to get them to think. Ya sahibay as-sijn. He uses gentleness in his approach. So that all my two companions in the prison. أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ. Are all these multiple gods that your hands have made themselves, all of these multiple idols and gods that you've created, are they better? Or Allah al-Wahid al-Qahhar, Allah, the one, al-Qahhar, the one, the overpowering. Here, Sayyidina Yusuf is challenging, think about this. You've got all of these multiple gods, and you've got this one God that dominates everything, that overpowers everything. Who's the God? Who's the God? مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ. Allah never took a son. وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ. And there's no God along with him. إِذَنْ لَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Then if that was the case, if he had taken it, one of them would have overpowered the other. Al-Qahhar. Al-Qahhar is a Rabb. The dominant one who overpowers everything is the only one who can be the Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's only one. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Al-Ahadiyya, Al-Samadiyya, the idea of one. The one subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Sayyidina Yusuf, he's teaching them the irrationality of shirk. All of these multiple gods, they can't do anything. The one, Al-Qahhar, dominates and controls everything. He's the only one. So he challenges, that's the way of prophets, the da'wah of the prophets, challenges that people think about what you believe in, think about what you worship. Ya sahibay as-sijn, أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. What's the better of the two? What rationally is the truth? Is it all of these multiple gods that can't la yanfa' wa la yadur, can't do anything? Or is the one that overpowers everything? And he continues to push home the point. مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءً. What you're worshipping is just names that you've given. These are names that you've given. All of these gods that you've created in ancient Egypt, all of these gods that you've created, they're just names that you've attached onto these beings. سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. You've just given names. You've just created a god from wood, from stone, from gold, from whatever, and then you put a name onto it without anything whatsoever to back up the idea that they're divine. And then you started worshipping them. مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ. And you have no basis whatsoever from the one, Al-Qahhar, the overpowering, the one Lord, for anything that you're claiming. Instead, Yusuf alayhi salam finishing off his point, in al-hukmu illa lillah. The affair, I worship, only belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's only one ma'bud. There's only one that deserves to be worshipped, the one that overpowers everything. He's the only one that deserves to be worshipped. Why? He's al-wajib li-dhati, al-mujid lil-kull, al-malik lil-amr. He's the one whose existence must be. Inconceivable that this world can exist without him. He's the one who's brought everything into existence, and he's the one who controls everything. Why would you worship anything other than him? In al-hukmu illa lillah. Amara alla ta'budu illa iyyah. He's ordered, subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the tongue of prophets, he's ordered, don't worship anybody except for him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he then ends by saying, that's a deen al-qayyim. That's the upright religion. That's a straight religion. That's a religion where there's nothing bent or crooked or twisted within it. That's the religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, a deen al-qayyim. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most people, they have no knowledge whatsoever of this. Most of humanity will commit shirk along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some brilliant lessons in da'wah towards tawheed and how you speak to people instead of hiding around, and just get to the point. Get to the point. This is what I don't worship. This is what I worship. And this is the reason why. This is the reason why I'm on this way. After Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam has explained to them his belief, he then explains to them their dreams. He now says, Ya sahibay as-sijn, O my two companions in the prison, you've asked me about these two dreams. He says, Amma ahadukuma fayasqi rabbahu khamra. He says, one of you, the saqi, the wine server of the king, he'll go back to his job, and he'll be freed by the king and return back to serving him wine as he was originally doing. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرُ. So the other one, the khabbaz, the bread maker, فَيُصْلَبْ. He'll be crucified. He will be the one that the king will say, he's the one who tried to kill me. So he'll be yuslab. He'll be crucified. فَتَأْكُلُ الطَّيْرُ مِنْ رَأْسِهِ. And so birds will come and eat from his head as he's hung on the cross that he'll be crucified upon. At that point, it is reported in the books of Tafsīr, the two of them said, you're lying. You're lying. We never saw anything. When they heard the explanation, they just switch and change their stories. But Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam says, the matter that the two are asking about, it's now decreed. Once the interpretation comes, it's closed, it's sealed. It's sealed. It's also interesting reports by some of the mufassirin that after Sayyidina Yusuf explained faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and invited them to come and believe, the saqi, the wine server, became Muslim. He accepted the message of Yusuf, but the khabbaz, the bread maker, refused, and it's reported 3 days later, the king has him taken out and has him crucified, whereas he releases the wine maker. But before they leave, before they're out of that prison, a further twist now, Allah subhanahu relates to us. وقال للذي ظن أنه ناج منهم اذكرني عند ربك. وقال للذي ظن أنه ناج منهم اذكرني عند ربك. Then it is reported, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, after he's explained the dreams, even though they question and they denied it, as he's leaving the prison, as the the wine server is leaving the prison, Yusuf alayhi salam turns to him and he says to him, to the one, Allah doesn't mention, it doesn't, like we mentioned previously, it doesn't mention names. Allah is not overly concerned about names. He just says, الَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ, the one that he believed that will be saved. Dhanna, yani, for the linguists amongst us, normally dhanna means probable. But here, most of the Mufassirin go to say dhanna bima'na tayaqqana. He was certain, because he knew the meaning of the dream from revelation. So he was certain that he was going to be saved. He knew that through revelation he was going to be saved. وَقَالَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ مِّنْهُمْ. So he's, alayhi salam, said to the one that he knew would be saved, اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ, make mention of me to your Lord. اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ, make mention of me to your Lord. Like when you now are out of prison, you're back into the court of the king, just remind him that there's a young Hebrew man who's been wrongfully imprisoned. Make mention of me, of who I am. Make mention of me, of the injustice that's been done against me. اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ. And here it's worth noting, this is Yūsuf and Nabi al-Muwahhid. This is Yūsuf, the Prophet, the one who has the highest of all knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He uses the term Rabb, Lord, to describe the king. There's no ishkal, because some people say you can't say Sayyidi, you can't say Mawlaya, you can't say my master, describing people. Yusuf alayhi salam calls the king of Egypt Rabbik, Inda Rabbik, with your Lord. In that sense, it's fine. It's fine. Ar-Rabb hu Allah, the absolute Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but there's lower levels of authority that are recognized. اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ. Remember, make mention of me with your Lord. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. So shaitan made him forget to remember his Lord. This phrase here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says has two possibilities. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ. Shaitan made him forget. Made who forget? One possibility was that Shaitan made the wine server forget to mention Yusuf alayhi salam with the king. That's one possibility. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. He made him forget to mention him with his Lord. The other one, and this is مع التأدب الكامل مع الأنبياء, with complete deference to the prophets. فَأُنْسِيَ يُوسُف أَنْ يَذْكُرَ اللَّهِ. Yusuf alayhi salam, at that moment, he saw a way out of the prison. So he forgot to mention his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And instead, he took help from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For you and I, mere mortals, you go and take help from anybody, it's all good. It's all good. Hayyan wa mayyitan, doesn't make a difference. Dead or alive, it's all good. You take help from others, we know that al-mu'een hu Allah, the absolute helper is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is Nabiyyun min al-anbiya. This is a prophet. The standard is so much higher for prophets. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. The shaitan made him forget to mention his Lord. The report states, when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, as mentioned by Imam al-Qurtubi in his Tafsīr, when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he said that to the wine server, when you go back to your Lord, make mention of me. And he didn't say, or he forgot at that point Yusuf to ask Allah, release me from the prison. It's reported that Jibreel alayhi salam came down to Yusuf alayhi salam in the prison to correct him. And Jibreel alayhi salam says to Sayyidina Yusuf, Yusuf, ya Yusuf, oh Yusuf, who saved you from being killed by your brothers? He said, Allah. Who saved you from the well, in the well? He said, Allah. Who protected you from the filth of Zulaykha? He said, Allah. Who turned away from you the scheming of the women? He said, Allah. So then how can you leave your Lord, and not ask him, and instead rely upon a created being? Why are you asking? Why are you asking the wine server to make mention with your Lord? Why are you not asking your Lord? Every single step of the way, your Lord has always taken care of you. Why would you go to the king? Why would you not go to the king of all kings, subhanahu wa ta'ala? The response is saying to Yusuf alayhi salam, Ya Rab. He realized what he's done. You and I, we're all good. If you do that, you're all good. This is not you and I. This is Yusuf alayhi salam. This is Nabi. This is a prophet, the highest of all ranks. Ya Rab, kalimatun zallat minni. He said, oh my Lord. He said, oh my Lord, this is a word that just slipped from my tongue. And he's saying, I wasn't thinking at that moment. I just saw an opportunity. Tark al-afdal lil-fadila. He chose an acceptable way, but instead of the highest way. It's perfectly acceptable to go and ask somebody, help me out here. But he's been helped every single step of the way by his Lord. So Allah hold him to a higher standard because he's Nabi. So he said, Ya Rab, kalimatun zallat minni. So my Lord, said a word that just slipped out of my tongue. أسألك يا إله إبراهيم وإله إسحاق والشيخ يعقوب عليهم السلام أن ترحمني. He said, I ask you, Ya Allah, I ask you, O God of Ibrahim, O God of Ishaq, and of the Sheikh Yaqub, my father, the elder Yaqub, I ask you, O God of Ibrahim, O God of Ishaq, and the Sheikh Yaqub, alayhim salam, show me mercy. Just for that one word, show me mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. Because of that, he remained in prison for a number of other years. Just because of one word that was uttered, which itself is not a sin because he's a prophet, but he dropped down a level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you're staying in prison. You're going to stay in prison more. فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. So Jibreel alayhi salam says to him, فَإِنَّ عُقُوبَتَكَ. Your punishment, like from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you're going to stay in prison for a number of more years. بِضْعَ سِنِينَ في كلام العرب, the language of the Arabs, is 3 to 9 years. And it's reported after originally being in prison for around 5 years, another 7 years he stays in prison, just because he said, اذكرني عند ربك. Make mention of me with your Lord. That's the standard that Allah holds the prophets to, so different to the standards that he holds you and I to. But now, we now move to the beginning of the end. Now it's all going to turn. Now that's now Yusuf alayhi salam, like for years and years in prisons of Egypt. The king of Egypt, years later, 7 years later, sees a dream. And that dream now becomes the beginning of the release of Yusuf alayhi salam, where then he alayhi salam will then be raised and he will eventually take the position of the king of Egypt himself. We'll finish with that. We'll continue this bi-idhnillahi ta'ala next week. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. So somebody asked a question about what's the wisdom behind Yusuf alayhi salam going to prison, and what does it teach for Muslims that are in prison now or being to prison? Well, first of all, in the context of the ayah, we see that first of all, it was a request of Yusuf, and he wanted that because he was so scared of those women. He was never going to commit haram, but they wouldn't leave him alone. So he made the dua, Ya Rab, just take me out of this and the prison of this world and put me safe from these. So for him, the prison where he's locked in, solitary confinement around other prisoners, he's safer there than he's out of prison. He's safer there, but this is a maqam in Nubuwwah. These are prophets. These are not normal human beings. These are the highest of all human beings. As somebody goes through some hard time in their life, don't start making dua, Lord, put me in prison. Don't put me. That's Yusuf. That's Yusuf. It's not something very different. for those who are in prison or being in prison. Yani here, noting here, Yusuf was completely innocent. Completely innocent. And in fact, the lie was put against him. The innocent one was made to be guilty, and the guilty one was made to be innocent. So he's completely innocent, and there he is, just worshipping his Lord in prison, calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in prison. Prison for some is a blessing. And this is the point here, that once a person drops down to the lowest of all, prisoners are looked down and frowned on. These are criminals. But this is Nabi. These are people. And people go to prison, often turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, becomes an opening for them from the evil of this world. So the best of all of humanity, amongst the best of all of humanity, they're in prison, but it becomes a way for so much to happen to him and for him and through him. Wallahu a'lam. Tamam, we'll finish with that. We'll continue our study of this great story, the greatest of all stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors us with. Okay, we've got something else here. Great question. How do we know the difficulty we go through in life are a test from Allah or punishment? Simple answer, because it's a question that often stumps people and confuses people. So when you look into yourself, there's problems. And so we consider it as a punishment from Allah for some wrong that we've done. That's what Sayyidina Yūsuf had. And what he did was nothing. But he now sees it, zilla. This is a slip of the tongue. And Allah keeps him in prison for that length of time. So from our perspective, whatever we're going through, there's something that we've done. When we fall sick, the dua for the person sick, tahurun inshallah, purification inshallah. But from the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu may well be testing us and raising us in levels and so on. So there's a human perspective and there's the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we look at ourselves. We don't judge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who judges us. We don't judge him. He's the one subhanahu wa ta'ala who judges us. Might sound strange with Zuleika synonymous with this behavior. Should people use it? No, it's a fine name. It's a common name amongst. There's no harm in that, because she repents and she changes her ways. And how many men and women have lived a bad life? But they turn back to Allah. It's even said in the book of Tafsīr that Sayyidina Yūsuf alayhi eventually marries her. She makes sincere and genuine tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what she'd done. And inshallah ta'ala, she's been accepted. So what we're told of is the beginning. But at the end, it is said that she repented and that Sayyidina Yūsuf he actually marries her at the end. Wallahu a'lam. And it's even said that he has children. He has children from her. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop here. We'll continue this next week. Bi'iznillahi ta'ala. إذا أحيانا الله تعالى, with the permission of Allah, if He keeps us alive until next time, we'll continue this. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahluh. Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahluh. Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahluh. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. May Allah bless you all. جزاكم الله خير.